So you're playing a massive point in Padel, right? You've battled your way up to the net, you're in total command, and then, boom, your opponent throws up this deep lob. Suddenly you're scrambling backward, you're stuck in no man's land, and you're just wondering how on earth to hit this thing without handing over your offensive advantage. It's honestly one of the most frustrating problems in the sport. Well, welcome to today's explainer. We are diving deep into two of the most iconic overheads in Padel, the Bandeja and the Víbora. We're going to break down exactly what these shots are, how they're different, and most importantly, how you can use them to absolutely dominate the net. Okay, here is our roadmap for today. We're going with a compare, learn, practice approach. We'll start with Bandeja versus Víbora, then cover tactical use, grip and prep, contact and swing, the perfect spin, and finally some progressive drills to really lock it all in. Let's kick things off with Section 1, Bandeja versus the Víbora. You know, there's this huge myth out there in amateur padel that all overheads are basically just the same shot. Just a smash, but maybe hit with different levels of power. Well, we're going to completely bust that myth right now. Take the Víbora. The word literally translates to snake in Spanish. And let me tell you, that's not just some flashy nickname. It perfectly captures how biting and unpredictable this shot really is. It's an attacking overhead played right out of the air, loaded with a crazy amount of aggressive sidespin. It's meant to hurt your opponent. When you catch it just right, the ball basically slithers low off the glass, making it an absolute nightmare for the defense to dig out. But how does our snake compare to its cousin, the Bandeja? Well, the Bandeja is, at its core, a control shot. Its main job is safety. It's there to help you recover or hold your position at the net. The motion itself is really compact and linear. You're hitting it fairly flat, maybe adding a little underspin just to keep the bounce predictable. But the Víbora? The Víbora is built for pure offense. It's aggressive, and the whole point is to put the opponent under intense pressure or force a direct error. The swing motion couldn't be more different. It's a lateral, sliced movement that creates that nasty, skidding, low bounce. If we really want to compare these two side by side, it all comes down to one word: risk. The Bandeja is your low-risk option. It's stable, it's reliable, and you have a really wide margin for error. The Víbora, though, is medium to high risk, meaning your margin for error is a whole lot smaller. Think about the ball effect. Bandeja gives you a safe trajectory and a bounce you can trust, while the Víbora relies on that high slice spin to just die off the glass. And speed? The Bandeja is hit at a moderate pace, which actually buys you time to get back to the net. The Víbora is coming in fast. Because of all this, you really need the Bandeja from day one as a beginner, whereas the Víbora is something we highly recommend for intermediate to advanced players who already have solid coordination and know how to read the game. Moving into Section 2, when to use which. Look, understanding the theory is awesome, but knowing exactly when to pull the trigger, that is what actually wins matches. If you only remember one tactical rule from this entire explainer, let it be this one. Use the Bandeja when that lob pushes you deep backward. When you're stretched, you're out of position, and your number one goal is just surviving the shot and getting back to the net without giving your opponent an easy put away. But if that lob is a bit shorter, or you read it super early and get yourself in perfect position right underneath it, that is exactly when you unleash the Víbora. A shorter lob gives you the balance and the court geometry you need to go on the attack. Okay, so you've decided to hit the Víbora. Now, where do you aim? If we look at high-level play, about 60% of the time, you're going cross-court. Why? Simply because the diagonal gives you the most physical distance. It increases your margin of error, but you can still create these incredible angles off the glass. Then, about 30% of the time, you might drive it hard down the middle just to cause a little panic and confusion between the two players. And only about 10% of the time should you rip it down the line. Hitting down the line is a super awkward angle, requires absolute perfect timing, so definitely keep that one in your back pocket as a surprise tactic. All right, Section 3, grip and early preparation. So how do we actually pull this shot off? It all starts right in your hands, with the grip. For a true Víbora, using the Continental Grip is an absolute deal breaker. It's non-negotiable. If you grip it too far around, like you're hitting a standard tennis forehand, it is practically impossible to get the leverage and flexibility you need to brush the outside of the ball. The Continental Grip keeps your wrist loose so you can really snap through contact. Now sure, advanced players might twist their grip a tiny bit more for extreme side spin, but for now, just lock in that solid Continental Grip. When we talk about preparation, step 1 is make or break. The split second you see that lob, you have to turn side on. You absolutely cannot hit this shot square onto the net.
Step 2, point your non-dominant arm, so your left arm if you're a righty, straight up at the ball. It acts like a tracking system for your timing, plus it helps coil your shoulders. And step 3, get that racket back behind your head, and pay attention because this is a massive detail. Make sure the racket face is closed. It should be angled slightly down toward you. If you open up that racket face too early, you're going to hit this floaty, totally useless shot. Keep it closed and you guarantee that biting slice when you finally swing.
Let's jump to section 4, contact point and swing.
You've prepared flawlessly. The ball is coming down and it's go time. But wait, here is a massive mistake people make all the time. They treat the Víbora like a tennis smash and try to hit it way up high above their head. No, completely wrong. To hit the snake, you actually have to be patient and let the ball drop. Your perfect contact point is right around eye height, slightly out in front of your body and out to your right side. Letting it drop to eye height gives you the space to wrap your racket around the side of the ball. If you reach way up high, you're just going to smack it flat into the ground, entirely defeating the tactical purpose of the shot.
This leads to a really crucial concept. The actual motion of your swing goes through, not down. You aren't spiking a volleyball here. As you strike at eye height, your racket needs to carve horizontally right through the ball. The best way to think about your follow-through is to imagine holding a plate or a tray. After you make contact, your racket finishes high and across your body, kind of like you're carrying a tray of drinks. That specific follow-through is exactly what drives the ball deep into the court instead of crashing straight into the net. Now here's a number that might actually shock you. 60 to 70%. That is your ideal power level for a really good víbora. Because it's an attacking shot, our brain naturally screams at us to absolutely crush the ball at 100% effort. But if you swing that hard, you throw yourself completely off balance, you lose the spin, and you completely ruin your chance to recover back to the net. Swinging at a nice, smooth 60 to 70% pace gives you total control, generates the perfect amount of spin, and keeps your feet perfectly positioned for whatever volley comes next. Moving right along to section 5, the perfect snake spin. We've talked a ton about spin, so let's look at the actual physics that gives this shot its venom. To create that crazy side spin, I want you to picture a clock face right on the back of the Padel ball. You are not hitting this ball dead in the center. You actually need to throw your racket around the outside of the ball and brush it right at the 3 o'clock mark. By carving around that 3 to 4 o'clock area, you impart this heavy side spin. And here's the magic. When that spinning ball hits the back glass on your opponent's side, it doesn't bounce out nicely. It skids, stays unbelievably low, and kicks out at the most awkward angles imaginable. That right there, that's the snake bite. All right, section 6, progressive drills to master. So we've covered the mechanics, but how do we bring this from theory into reality? There's a brilliant 5-step progressive sequence from training Padel that safely builds your skills up layer by layer. Drill 1 is just self-feeding, so you can completely isolate the mechanics. Drill 2 brings in high balls from a coach, letting you practice your footwork as you move forward. Drill 3 is awesome. It connects the víbora to a follow-up volley, which is exactly what happens in a real match. Drill 4 adds live pressure, making you retreat backward to play a second víbora. And finally, Drill 5 is a live free-point simulation where you start on offense and just play it out. This kind of progressive overload is literally exactly how the pros build solid muscle memory. Let's zoom in on that first drill for a second. When you're just tossing the ball up to yourself, no pressure, no opponent, there's one number you have to focus on, 90 degrees. During your prep, your hitting elbow has to stay high and locked at a 90-degree angle. Standing static, tossing the ball up, and focusing on brushing that 3 o'clock mark with a high elbow, that is how you bake in the muscle memory before the absolute chaos of a real match takes over. And then let's look at drill 3, because this is where it gets really dynamic. Step 1, you hit your diagonal cross-court víbora. Step 2, you don't just stand there, you immediately move forward and hit a split step. Step 3, you follow it up instantly with a deep forehand volley right down the center. This drill fixes a massive mistake we see all the time. Amateur players standing perfectly still, just admiring the amazing overhead they just hit. If you rip a beautiful víbora but you don't close in on the net, you throw away all that offensive pressure you just created. You have to wire your brain to link the overhead right into the next volley. And that brings us to the end. We have officially demystified both the bandeja and the víbora. You now know that the bandeja is your safe, linear lifeline for those tricky deep lobs, while the víbora is your aggressive, lateral spinning weapon for the shorter ones. You know you need the Continental Grip, you gotta let the ball drop to eye height, you brush the 3 o'clock mark with a closed racket face, and finish with a smooth follow-through to lock down the net. So the only question left for you is, are you ready to let the snake loose on the court? I'm telling you, mastering this shot completely changes the geometry of the game.
So grab your racket, hit these drills, and just watch how fast your opponents start dreading your overheads.